Hi, I'm Catherine Oakleaf. I'm here with my mom, Anne McWhir. This is a reflection on hope during the 2020-2021 COVID-19 pandemic, recorded June 30th, 2021. I'd like to start by drawing a small circle around the center of this story, around my brother, Stephen. There are general biographical details that I can give you, like his age, 39, the city where he lives, Calgary, or that he has our small, close-knit family nearby. Our immediate family includes me. I'm Stephen's younger sister, Catherine, our parents, Anne and David, Stephen's brother-in-law, Kevin, and his niece and nephews, Willa, who's 4, and twins, Isaac and Owen, who are not yet 2. These days, when I'm trying to draw a bigger circle, I find myself talking about befores and afters. Before the pandemic, Stephen had a full-time job at AltaGas in downtown Calgary. Before, he spent Friday nights hosting his girlfriend Jess for date nights at his condo. Before, he took transit and went shopping for groceries and went out for dinner and paid his bills and watched hockey. Before the pandemic, Stephen lived in his own condo. Before, his life was rich, full, predictable, and good. After, we wait. Stephen is waiting for it to be safe enough to return to the office. After, Stephen spends most nights at our parents' house because he no longer has the rhythms of the work week to anchor his independence. After, Stephen's relationship with Jess is essentially long distance, taking place over Facebook Messenger, punctuated by rare visits. Waiting 2 weeks after each dose of vaccine. Waiting to feel safe again. Waiting for things to go back to normal.
Of course, time has moved on through this weird year of waiting, but it has moved unpredictably, and that has made us all a bit wary. We seem to move forward a bit and then everything stalls, or we feel sometimes as if we're moving backwards on a conveyor belt. More worries, more constraints, more scary numbers on the news. Stephen checks the COVID stats on his phone every day. He's had his second shot now, and we're making plans to get him and his partner Jess together more often. So we're hopeful. But then we get news of the Delta variant, very close to home in all 50 states of the United States as of yesterday's news. And we look at one another uncertainly. It's confusing for all of us. Will there be a fourth wave? Will Stephen get to go back to work soon? Wasn't the vaccination supposed to protect him and all the rest of us from catching this bug? So why aren't we moving confidently towards what we used to call normal life? And is that a going back or a moving forward? It's really hard for Stephen to come to terms with things being different than they used to be. Maybe we'll need to wear masks a bit longer. Maybe getting vaccinated won't bring the pandemic to a sudden end. Maybe Stephen's job will look different when he finally gets back to a post-COVID workplace. Of course, the only possible direction for all of us is forward, even into an uncertain and scary future. Stephen's baby nephews aren't babies anymore. They turn 2 in 2 weeks. And his little niece has become a self-assertive preschooler. For Stephen's dad and me, Catherine's 3 little children are the very embodiment of hope, even if we can't fill in all the details of what lies ahead for us or for them. But Stephen experiences hope not so much as a vision projected into the future, but as a longing to get back to the past. He wants things back the way they used to be. He wants his old familiar date nights with Jess. He wants his job back, just as he remembers it. He misses his former support workers and his well-rehearsed, predictable routines. In times of crisis, hope, like raising children, takes even more imagination and vision than usual. I feel as if now, 15 months into the pandemic, we have finally reached a tipping point. Behind us, a sense of loss and an awareness of isolation as profound as grief. Ahead of us, the temptation of the Premier's official Alberta summer, hugely appealing, but maybe not the best or most reliable image of hope. But we, individuals, families, friends, and advocates, all of us are looking ahead and laughing more and learning all over again that imagination and vision and creativity come to life in community. Our community, which includes and is included by Inclusion Alberta. Exactly what we're hoping for may be a bit obscure and elusive, but the only thing we can know for sure is that things will change, sometimes brutally and unpredictably. In the light of this difficult knowledge, using our combined energy and our shared vision of inclusion to influence the direction of change is just about the most important thing we can do.
Isolated in our small family bubble, we rose and fell with each COVID wave as though adrift on an unknown sea. We rode out the first wave in spring 2020 with the kind of hope that seems cheerfully naive in retrospect. Our hope was idle and full of empty reassurances to Stephen, but for ourselves, that this would be over soon. 3 weeks to flatten the curve. In the weeks and months that followed, I found myself anchored by my own return to work from maternity leave in the summer of 2020. I found the structure, meaning, relationships, and routine nurturing and fulfilling, and this allowed me to see my brother's grief and loss more fully. That small first COVID wave had stripped him of his entire identity. It would have been so easy, so comfortable, and so reasonable to slip under the surface and into the murky depths of limitless Netflix and despair. Soon after, we faced the second wave, and this time we felt prepared. Stephen's support staff invited him to tag along and work with the team his dad coaches, the Kindersley Clippers, as they eased into their junior hockey season. In late September, Stephen left Calgary with Sam, and my parents followed with a mattress and some clothes packed into their SUV to a small town in Saskatchewan where Stephen would spend the next few months. And there he was, working out with the team, watching games, learning the equipment management basics. Plus, he learned to be a roommate to Sam and his dad, share a bathroom, prepare meals together, and even go out for the occasional beer. But then, as suddenly and unpredictably as anything else in this pandemic, the season was over, and Stephen came home. We realized then that we needed to start thinking long-term. We had to stop drifting and find solid ground. It was time to plant seeds, start nurturing something new.
Wave one was tolerable for our family because it rose and fell in summer 2020. We managed to have socially distanced outdoor activities, and Stephen was able to celebrate his 39th birthday with Jess and spend a few days with her at our family cabin. And then he had the wonderful opportunity that Catherine has described of heading off to Kindersley at a time when there were still hardly any COVID cases in Saskatchewan. Christmas 2020 was a reality check. Stephen was home with us, and he was no longer able to see Jess. We drove down to her house to deliver Stephen's Christmas present, and they met for 3 minutes in her driveway wearing masks. The hope he'd been living with all fall was seriously dashed. By January, none of us was feeling hopeful. Like lots of other people, maybe like some of you, we were getting through a succession of short, dark, cold days that all seemed much the same. We were getting on one another's nerves. We were snappish and irritable with one another. Knowing that we loved one another just made our sense of being stuck that much more frustrating. If someone had asked me then what our vision was for Stephen, I would have had a meltdown. I had no vision because, like Stephen, I was afraid of shattering disappointment. I felt much the same as I had back in those long ago days when Stephen couldn't go to kindergarten without a huge and exhausting struggle. That was the worst time, before the days got longer and the vaccination rollout began.
The third wave was truly terrifying for our family. Some of us are those people with the underlying medical conditions or high-risk status that were used night after night from government podiums to minimize the mounting death count. I worried about access to ventilators for my family if they felt ill. I worried about orphaning my children. And yet, what we had discovered early on is that idle hope did not serve us. We had to learn to be collaborative and generative in our hope. Our hope was in the doing. So we worked to make Team Stephen strong. We have spent time together and solidified Stephen's valued role as a caregiver and uncle to his niece and nephews. We have learned to talk to each other and approach disagreements in a solution-focused way. We remembered how to ask for help, and we practiced doing so. We developed a calendar to keep Stephen connected to the people that he cares about, and we have helped Stephen find ways to contribute and not just passively receive support, friendship, and help. We have held each other up and held space for each other's despair because Stephen cannot bear it on top of his own. For Stephen, we have manifested hope. We are getting to know each other differently and maybe even better. We are reaffirming our relationships to one another, and the kids, growing, changing, keep us all grounded in time. We are no longer drifting. We are in the mud and we are planting seeds. It is messy and it's making the waiting purposeful.
We're a cautious family and we're approaching summer 2021 tentatively and carefully. No patios yet. No plans for Stampede. Our task right now is to redefine hope and to practice dreaming all over again. That is not a plan. It's a process, like the planting and nurturing of seeds that Catherine has described. Hope isn't defined as any particular vision for Stephen's life. It depends on our ability to include Stephen with all his feelings of loss, grief, and bewilderment in the enthusiasm, hopefulness, uncertainty, and confusion of ongoing life. It depends on our willingness to have honest conversations that don't just repeat some orthodoxy we may no longer accept. It depends on our acknowledgement that there will be moments of despair. Hope is not an easy, cozy, feel-good kind of thing. It's hard work and hard times, and not everyone feels hopeful every day. Hope keeps all of us doing the boring stuff, even when all the days seem much the same. Hope embraces change, even longs for change. But since change can be risky and scary, hope needs to learn acceptance and to know when it is wise to wait and see.
What we've learned is that no one was coming to save us. Not community and social services, not segregated craft nights over Zoom, not even our own network. Though, of course, in the darkest days of the pandemic, it was tempting to let these forces pull us down into the dangerously soothing waters of segregation and time wasting. Instead, it was our relationships that saved us, leaning into each other and letting others pull us up when we could no longer hold hope for Stephen. It was the knowledge that we have friends and allies, quietly navigating these waters just out of our view, but brought to shore by the hope of the family movement. We discovered that we didn't need to be saved. We just needed to reconnect with what's always been at the core of our hope: family, love, and belonging.